As a result of the lies and the trickery that went on for 8 years, lenders wired in nearly $400 million of loans to ANI over that period, correct?
That's the number I've been told, yes.
A high-profile businesswoman has been charged in an alleged fraud scheme.
An established leader in San Diego's business community, Gina Champion-Cain.
Local business leader Gina Champion-Cain was sentenced to 15 years in prison today.
Gina Champion-Cain was very well known amongst people who were in real estate in San Diego. Leasing and marketing, developers, property managers. She always had a huge personality. She was incredibly charismatic, very magnetic, very outgoing. And in a world that was really kind of, in many ways, a macho boys club, she could really hang. She liked sports, she liked hanging out at the bar, she liked to play poker and smoke cigars. She liked going to Las Vegas.
I thought she was very affable, knowledgeable in the real estate area, no question. Definitely a hard charger, qualified in the arena she was working in.
Why didn't she stop? How can you continue to know that you're tricking people and think that you're gonna be able to give them their money back? It's like she treated me like a daughter or a niece, and so it was just so disappointing to see this woman that I respected so much do this.
Despite its sunny reputation, San Diego has been home to more than its share of financial scandals. In the early 70s, the mayor and much of the city council were indicted for fixing taxi industry prices. Also in the 1970s, a local businessman named Conrad Smith, who was known as Mr. San Diego, presided over what was then the largest bank failure in history. Since at least the 1990s, the city was underfunding pensions and using the leftover money to subsidize projects like a new baseball park downtown. The same money was used to help fund the 1996 Republican National Convention.
Our Republican hearts and minds are in the hospitable city of San Diego.
The mismanagement of pensions was actually what earned San Diego the title of Enron by the Sea. This world of rapid downtown development is the backdrop where Gina made her real estate career.
San Diego, the most attractive point for investment and speculation on the Pacific coast.
I got here in the mid-'80s. San Diego was still relatively a small military town. There were some bigger players, but actually very easy to be a big fish in a small pond at that time. There weren't a lot of institutional investors. Gina knew where to be to rub elbows with the people that she needed to. I met her, I believe, sometime not long after I got here in the late 80s, and she was actually consulting on some real estate projects in the Gaslamp Quarter. The Gaslamp itself was designated as a National Historic District. So there was some buzz, and there was still a lot of undesirable uses in terms of porn shops, tattoo parlors. Our paths never crossed. We never did a deal together. We were very friendly socially.
She started her own company, which was called American National Investments, the name of which suggests something of her ambition, I think. After she started going into hospitality following the recession, ANI grew very quickly. They went from having just a handful of employees really in 2011 and 2012 to having hundreds by, let's say, 2015, 2016. She had an office above a nightclub in downtown San Diego in what was then a sort of borderline neighborhood called the Gaslamp. She really used that as a calling card for many years thereafter to kind of suggest her status as a major developer in the city. She started appearing on all kinds of lists, 50 people to watch, 40 under 40. I think at some point she even appeared on the cover of San Diego Pets magazine. In 2003, San Diego magazine ran a cover with the headline, "Who Owns Downtown?" And on the cover was Gina Champion-Cain standing beside a much older man by the name of Bud Fisher.
My partner, Bud Fisher, who'd been active in the real estate business since the mid-'70s. He finally was recognized in the San Diego magazine in that issue. We saw right next to it was Gina Champion, right in her full PR glory on the Monopoly board with Bud. At the time, I wasn't aware of any real estate that Gina owned.
She had at a maximum maybe a couple of small stakes in relatively small pieces of property downtown at that point. For those who were just kind of casually reading San Diego Magazine, it very likely seemed to them that she really was a major figure in downtown real estate.
It wasn't the real estate that really bothered me. I thought she was in her lane, so to speak. It's when she started branching off into these the patio restaurants and the patio auxiliary businesses.
Walk into the patio on Goldfinch, just a few minutes from downtown San Diego, and you'll instantly feel at home.
Really a reflection of when you come to my home to eat, this is the atmosphere you would experience.
From the people I talk to and work with, they couldn't put two and two together to figure out how her restaurant empire was staying afloat. So that was always, to me, kind of like, you know, when am I going to wake up one day and the newspaper is going to say, give me the answer to that question, I would say.
Gina pivoted from corporate real estate development to more of a focus on hospitality. Simultaneously, she was going into short-term vacation rentals. She bought a number of beachfront mansions in the Mission Beach neighborhood of San Diego and created sort of a pet-friendly Airbnb model.
I mean, you could have got an operator, you could have got somebody to run the business. I'm curious why you decided to run the business where the busboy's late and, you know, where are the napkins and all this kind of nonsense.
Well, Jim, you and I have known each other a long time, and I have a little problem that I'm kind of a control freak, and I don't like just giving up things.
She also opened a couple of boutiques, at least one of which was in Mission Beach as well. Those were called Love Surf.
I met her within my first week of being here. I pretty much started at the boutique right away. I was a manager and buyer. I think she just came in and, you know, met me in the shop. And I just thought, you know, she was awesome, very charismatic, very welcoming. I just kind of felt right at home. You know, I always thought that these investments she was taking were, I'm like, I don't know how somebody can make this percentage of a return, you know, but I trusted it because a lot of people that were very high up and very well respected trusted her. Every 6 months, you were supposed to get 15% return. And so you get a promissory note once you agree to doing this, and it says, you know, how much you're investing. It agrees to give you back your full return if you decide to pull out. And I had inherited some money, and I'm like, okay, I should probably take the opportunity to do this. I invested $20,000. I invested pretty close to when, you know, this whole scheme broke out. So I never got the chance to roll over.
In general, her businesses really tended to hemorrhage money. Gina had an assistant, unsurprisingly, but apparently at some point, Gina's assistant was able to hire an assistant of her own, and that person, Gina's assistant's assistant, then got 2 assistants. So it was sort of unclear to many at the corporate office what all these people were doing with their time. In the process of opening her first restaurant, Gina learned a little bit about the way liquor licensing works in California. California liquor licenses can be quite expensive, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. A lot of would-be restaurant owners or even current restaurant owners might have trouble coming up with that much capital on short notice. It occurred to Gina that there might be a viable service in making high-interest short-term loans to folks who needed to deposit these funds into escrow accounts. She approached a friend of hers named Kim Peterson, who was a prominent investor and real estate developer himself in San Diego, and explained the idea to him. And Peterson came on board first as an investor, and it appeared to him that the loans he was making functioned as advertised and they were paying off. Peterson proposed to take a more active role in bringing on additional investors himself. And from there, the platform really took off as Peterson was able to interest a number of institutional investors, banks and hedge funds and so forth, to really increase the amount of capital going into Gina's platform. A very substantial amount of capital came from institutional investors, notably a hedge fund based in Austin called Ovation, as well as Bank of California. The problem with this premise is that, in fact, the Liquor Licensing Board only requires them to deposit 5 or 10%, let's say, and they only have to come up with the full amount when they actually acquire the full license or the restaurant that the license is coming with. There is no strong demand for short-term, high-interest loans to cover these escrow costs. As far as we can tell, there were no loans ever actually made through this platform. A little bit under $400 million are thought to have flowed through the account. Early investors certainly were making money.
I don't think it was about not going to prison. I think it was to keep making people a lot of money, which I was doing.
In early 2019, there was a very big private equity fund and real estate developer that was considering investing about $100 million in the fund. But before they pulled the trigger, they wanted an expert read. And so they hired a guy named Michael Brewer, who is one of the foremost experts on California liquor licensing in the state, to design sort of a due diligence process for them. And in the course of that due diligence, Brewer and his client concluded that Gina's loan program wasn't actually funding any liquor license escrows, and that the most likely explanation for its success was that it was a Ponzi scheme.
All of a sudden, we just got an email from our HR department. Like, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but it was something like, you know, this story has been released, the SEC is investigating this, you know, please don't talk to any press.
The Securities and Exchange Commission says the company defrauded dozens of retail investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars.
I completely thought it was a misunderstanding. I was like, there's no way that this could be happening. I thought I was gonna have my job forever. I loved that company. And it's kind of like the denial phase, you know? You think that it can't be true. Somebody I love and I respect, they can't do this to people that they are supposed to love.
Part of the success of the fund, I think, was Gina's very good standing in the business community in San Diego. Part of it was also Kim Peterson's very good standing. People really respected Kim Peterson. They thought of him as an honest guy and as a very careful investor. Gina had very close relationships with a handful of employees at Chicago Title, which was the company overseeing the escrow accounts for her. And she maintained those relationships in part by giving very nice gifts.
Free baseball tickets, Charger suite tickets when we had the Chargers were still in San Diego. Petco Park, we had corporate suites there. I gave lots of bottles of alcohol, champagne, jewelry, cash, lots of free food at my restaurants.
In a message that was cited in a number of lawsuits, Gina said to 2 Chicago employees, if anyone calls asking about escrow accounts and alcohol licenses, blah, 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 just tell them, show me the money, ha, 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 ha. We should emphasize, actually, that many investors put their trust more in Chicago Title, at least that's what they would say now, than they did in Gina Champion-Cain. Chicago Title is one of the largest title insurance companies in the country. Chicago Title, as the keeper of the escrows, was not supposed to allow money in or out of any account for any purpose other than the account holder specified. In retrospect, Gina's Ponzi scheme might have been quite easy to uncover. All it might have taken was a phone call to 1 or 2 people who were supposedly financing their liquor license escrow accounts with her fund to find out that, in fact, they were not. When we think of the largest fraudsters in history, it's men's names that come to mind, most notably Bernie Madoff, but Gina is thought to be the most prolific female Ponzi schemer in history. A very substantial amount of capital came from institutional investors, but there were a lot of people that Gina knew personally who put in money as well.
She reached out to me through text message and asked if I wanted to come over. She said she wanted to explain the whole situation. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt, because it's like, okay, I still don't have all the facts. And then she sat me down, we shared some wine, and she went, she told me the story from when she started until she got caught. And she said that it started off legitimately, and then she just liked this feeling of, getting money and being able to hire people and kind of building this empire. And she said she got too carried away and it slipped way out of her hands. She was like promising me all my money back. She was promising me that I was gonna be part of a Netflix documentary. And I still I was like, how is she gonna have a Netflix deal? She's gonna be in prison.
Gina lived a very nice lifestyle. She had property in Carmel, California. She had property out in Palm Desert. She had a very nice home in Mission Hills, but most of the money does seem to have gone to the businesses.
I truly believed I was going to take a couple of these companies public and pay everybody back. Not that what I was doing was right, because it wasn't.
Her businesses went into receivership and have been gradually getting liquidated, sold off, chopped up, and sold for pieces.
I still can't believe she pulled it off, I guess, as long as she could. But it is disappointing. Sorry. It is disappointing to see somebody that you loved and really looked up to do this. I don't want to associate other people with being liars and deceiving me, And it was really hard for me to trust anybody when I was applying for jobs again, because it's like every company I looked at, I'm like, well, how do you get your money? How do you operate this business?
We know that the Department of Justice is actively investigating a number of former Chicago Title employees. There are also a number of ongoing civil suits against Chicago Title. She pled guilty and was ultimately sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. She is currently in a minimum security institution in Northern California called FCI Dublin.
I am living my life as a very good prisoner here at Dublin. I teach classes, I mentor people, and I'm a very strong member of this community here.